Hi, welcome everyone to Coleman Report Live, September 16th edition. We have a very distinguished panel of historical SBA knowledge, and we're going to have a discussion on the history of the agency and what's going on. Welcome, John Riosti from American Banker. Your article this morning had a very interesting headline, and we haven't seen direct lending for 7A in a very long time. So we're going to go through how it got to this point and where we're at legislatively. But we wanted to ask the first question and only question is, should SBA be able to make 7A loans directly to small business borrowers? And Lance, you've speculated on what the results are.
I think this is going to probably be a resounding no, but I'm not sure.
There you go. 74% say no. Majority and 20 say yes, 6 undecided. So,
well,
go
guys,
ahead.
I think this is an effort on the part of the administration and the SBA to continue to serve the so-called underserved market. It's like PPP in 2021 versus 2020. There was a big push to serve the underserved market, and I suspect SBA and the administration thinks there needs to be more money available for the underserved. And, the poll question I asked Joe to ask, how many of you guys have ever done a direct loan with SBA? I have. I've done quite a few.
Well, give us millennials a history lesson, Lance. In the 80s, all loans were direct lending, correct, for SBA?
I started my SBA lending career in 1983, packaging loans at the Small Business Development Center, and at that point, basically all SBA lending was direct SBA lending, and a small business owner who had been out to a couple of banks and been told no, because that was one of the requirements to get a direct loan from SBA at that time, is you had to have 2 bank decline letters. They would come to your local small business development center and get some assistance, or someone else, an accountant, and get assistance packaging the loans. At that time, we submitted loans to the district offices, SBA district offices, who were all populated with lenders. At that time, they would have 2 to 5 lenders and then a chief lender in every district office who would review and decision loans up to a certain point. Now, I don't remember what level had to go to headquarters for a review, but that's the way the program, that's my original few years in SBA lending, was packaging loans that were submitted directly to SBA. Guys, the documentation over the years has reduced a lot. I always love to tell the story. My oldest daughter, Alyssa, had one of those red wagons that you give your kids. And one of the loan packages that I had was so large that I couldn't carry it safely up to the district office, and I had her red wagon in the back of my vehicle, and I actually put the loan package in the red wagon and wheeled it up to the district office in the wagon. So
and then in the late 80s, the SBA stopped direct lending. It was inefficient, and there was charge-offs left and right. I mean, it was kind of a mess, right?
Well, yes, Joe. The default rate on SBA loans was significantly higher back when direct lending took place. Again, just think about this. Back then, you had to have been turned down by 2 financial institutions, right, in order to qualify for a direct SBA loan. Now, I don't know that they'll have that same requirement this time, but there's not a lack of capital in America for small businesses right now. There are plenty of willing banks to loan the money. So I think it's an interesting concept, and John may be able to share some more about where this came from. But I suspect it's an attempt to serve the underserved markets.
John, catch us up on the legislative actions and how this came about, and give us your take on this.
Well, first of all, it's part of a much larger package of legislation, the 3.5 trillion dollar spending package that is Congress is working on now, and there's about 100,000 moving parts in that. As you can expect from an amount of money that large, it really sort of would impact probably every part of the economy, including small business lending. So what I heard on a conference call with Senator Cardin and Representative Velasquez, not yesterday but the day before, so that would have been Tuesday, is that the committees, the small business committees chunk, if I can call it that, of the larger $3.5 trillion pie was $25 billion to fund a wide range of programs. Included in that is this 4.465, I'm going to round up and call it $4.5 billion appropriation or allocation that would fund direct loans. I don't know that it'll be direct lending in the sense that Lance described, because they're going to have some partners in this. And what the agency and sort of indicated to me, or at least what some sources close to the program indicated to me, is that they'll work with these partners. These partners might be CDFIs. These partners might be MDIs. So it could involve some banks and credit unions, because there are plenty of CDFI banks and credit unions. But it could also just involve the non-depository CDFIs who sort of got their first taste of SBA through PPP, and they will work as partners in, I guess, taking the lending. And now I'm adding a little bit of speculation on my part, but in sort of the work of onboarding and processing the loan. SBA, they will do that adhering to the standards that SBA sets. So it might be a little bit more diversified than what Lance was talking about. There might not be lenders at SBA. There might be. That hasn't been decided yet, I think. But that's how it would work. And I think one of the ABA spokesperson that I talked to noted, why would they be setting up a program that competes with the banks and credit unions and lenders that are already doing a pretty good job? And will that turn some participants off? Some people who might be or might also be planning to jump into SBA lending. They might not like this, and they might pull out.
Give us a quick. Go ahead, Lance.
One thing I was going to say, John, back in the 80s, a borrower had to come in with 2 decline letters from banks, which means a financial institution had to look at it and say no. And I think there's less heartburn on the part of financial institutions if they at least get an opportunity to take a look at it. My alternative, this is a pretty big number when you think about the overall budget for 7A.
Sure.
Could you not just put this in the regular 7A budget and come up with a sub program that hit those underserved markets that you're wanting to hit? Like I said, $4.5 billion is a pretty robust budget for a program like this.
It is. It's over 10 years, and the important thing also is that Senator Cardin said he'd like to see it become permanent. And what you say there is interesting, because if it does become permanent, it might start out as direct lending, but over time, and I'm totally speculating, it might evolve into something that is much closer to what we have with conventional 7A.
Well, and one thing I shared with both John and Joseph before we started, there's a shortage of qualified SBA lending personnel. You know, people are trading hats and increasing their income because there are not enough SBA lenders out there. Throw a program like this into the mix, and you're going to thin the staff, SBA skilled people even more. So SBA, if they do need lenders to pull this off, may find those lenders to be expensive.
Right.
My question, yeah, for you is this line that says it's going to be 150,000 or less. Manufacturers would be up to $1 million. But with that authority, I mean, that's a lot of lending decisions done by SBA if this is conceptual. I mean, but that's a lot of loans that SBA would they would take on another huge task. So are they capable of doing that? I mean,
that's an interesting point you raised, because as of and I don't have the story in front of me, but as of September 3rd, we used the September 3rd numbers on the weekly lending report. It was over 16,000 loans. I think it was like 16,000, in the neighborhood of 16,250 this year. So you're right, that's a lot of loans. That could be a lot more, because the amount of money behind those loans was only 1.1 billion. So if SBA has 4.65 billion to spend, they might be talking significantly higher than 16,000 loans. But one of the points,
30,000.
yeah, that definitely.
If they're all the max 150, it's 30,000 loans.
Sure, absolutely, and it bears though noting one of the reasons that both Senator Cardin and Chairwoman Velasquez said this type of program is necessary, and I'm just giving you their side of this, is because that 16,000 plus loan number, $1.1 billion through September 3rd, it'll be probably a bit higher than that, or maybe a lot higher than that come September 30th, is much lower than it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, it was 35,000 for the entire fiscal year, and I'm afraid I forgot the amount of funding, but it was significantly in excess of 1.1 billion. So that's to put their point on it, that SBA is doing a lot in terms of lending under 150,000, and they talked about 100,000 also, but not as much as it used to.
Yeah.
Georgia, thank you, Georgia, for your question. She says banks across the country are flooded with deposits right now, and they need loans to offset those high deposit balances. Seems like Congress is not even addressing that. And she said, plus the PPP portfolios, there's a ton of loans with the 1%. I mean, that's the balance sheets are incredible right now with the record 7A and 504. So this is this is a huge story developing, John. I mean,
and it should be noted, I didn't get it in the story because I only had so much time, and I'm going to follow up on this. There is also a direct lending appropriation that would impact CDC. The reason I didn't link them together is, in this case, the direct lending would be done, and I said CDC, I meant 504, the 504 program. In this case, the lending would be done entirely by the CDCs that right now do 40% of a loan. Banks and other credit unions, they do 50% and have the senior position, and the investor puts in, the borrower rather puts in the final 10%. I also want to note that one source I talked to, who I didn't get into the story, but I hope to do a follow-up and get this in, is he mentioned that these deals that SBA might take away from banks as it goes into competition with banks, and I should say credit unions as well, for these $150,000 loans, it takes more than just the loan away. It could take away the relationship, and there's a much broader relationship, treasury management, deposits, everything else that goes along with a financial relationship and the banks lose out on that. The lenders, I'll say, lose out on that, and lose that. There's an opportunity, bigger opportunity cost here than just the interest income and whatever other fee income a lender is able to generate through this, through a normal SBA loan.
Well, and I think one of the things, guys, that comes into play is how they develop the regulation around this program. I mean, once the regulation is developed and we understand what qualifies, how it directly or indirectly competes with a financial institution, then most people would dig their feet in the sand and say, I either like it or I don't like it. And I really don't suspect this is a program, guys, that they would pop out like they did PPP, pop it out and then fix it as they walk down the path. It probably will take them a year to develop the regs around this, if it passes.
And that's a good point. That and I totally agree with you. They're gonna finalize this and to the degree they're able to perfect it before they begin operating it.
Amazing story, John. Great reporting. I have linked your article. Check out just American Banker, John Riosti, and you'll find it. We have another, it's out of Washington, John. It's the Save Hotel Jobs Act. Have you heard about this? Or it's just another bill that would help the hotels out. Have you heard anything about this?
I haven't heard much about this, but I do know this. On that conference call where I learned about these direct lending programs, the Senator Cardin and Representative Velasquez talked about the potential for a PPP3, and they said, that wouldn't take the form of PPP 1 or 2. It wouldn't be open to sort of the general economy. It would be highly focused. It really what it would be sort of a continuation, number one, of the Restaurant Recovery Act, which had a lot of funding but got exhausted almost immediately. So that's an indication that there's a tremendous demand. And they talked about other industries that are sort of in the same boat as restaurants, industries that suffered sort of more so than most as a result of COVID. And they didn't mention hotels by name, but obviously hotels come immediately to mind with restaurants. So if there is sort of an additional version of PPP, I think that's what it would consist of, is very targeted assistance to specific industries, and I would hope hotels would be one of. That's probably not a very good answer to the question, but that's what I know.
Okay, Bethany asked a question. Welcome, Bethany. She says, is this conceptual direct loan program different than the existing Community Advantage program, or is this a permanent program that they're talking about making?
They're talking about this being a permanent program. It is a 10-year authorization.
Wow. Okay.
And I suspect, at somewhere in that 10 years, before 10 years, this $4.465 billion will run out. So it would likely need additional income. Interestingly, in this bill, they extended the life of Community Advantage another 10 years and provided $600 million of funding. And I think that, if you do the math of what Community Advantage gets, that probably will be a significant budget increase, hopefully, going into fiscal 2022 for Community Advantage. But it's a little bit a different program because Community Advantage is not direct lending. The Community Advantage lenders make the loans. They receive SBA support, certainly, but they make the loans, and they make them within the parameters SBA sets. But it's not direct lending. So this would be a separate program.
Great. Well, it's obviously it's just a massive story. So We're going to be following this, obviously, very closely. Lance, thank you for the history lesson. John, great reporting. And this concludes today's Coleman Report Live. Join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.